here's what can happen sometimes when you're crafting your characters. They can start to feel heavy and unwieldy, and you can feel like you can't move with them. You can't write with them. There are too many things that you want to accomplish with your main character. They've got to be, I don't know, they've got to be like a hero and an academic, and they've got to be kind of moody and at the same time charming and winning somebody over. And having all of these things kind of going on in a main character can make it start to feel, I don't know, impossible to move forward with your character. So, what's the answer? Well, years ago, I learned about something that I don't know if this is apocrypha or not, or if it's actually true, but apparently, something that Tolkien did was he took his one hobbit character, Frodo, and then he split him into four hobbits that we all now know and love. Sam, Pippin, Merry, and then Frodo. And then he allowed each one of them to be an aspect of a hobbit. So instead of having one complex, multi layered main character, he created four characters who could interact with each other. From like a psychological perspective, you could see that as the partitions of a person, and we're in constant conversation with those different partitions of ourselves throughout the day, throughout our lives. We're always in dialogue. The moments when you're actually sitting and thinking something through, you're literally having a conversation with yourself, with a different part of yourself that wants to do something different, maybe, or is pushing back on things. So there was one novel that I was writing, or I was working on a couple of years back, and I was falling into this same situation that I just described, where my main character was becoming so unwieldy. I wanted him to be a hero. I wanted him to be interested in research. I wanted him to be a rebel. I wanted him to be a leader. And I couldn't create a story where all of those things would happen with that character. So I decided to follow Tolkien's example and to split my Frodos. And so I took that one character and I split him into three. And then all of a sudden, I discovered movement and motivation. I understood, okay, if he is just the rebel, now I understand that he's the rebel who can't leave. That makes so much sense, and I can write that character. And then I've got the leader who doesn't want to lead and who wants to be an academic, like say the prince. Oh, now that makes sense, and I can write that character. And then the third one is like the medic or the helpful person who wants to be a hero but can't fight. Ah, I understand that. And so splitting that character into multiple characters can create movement. It can create the chance to also open up completely different storylines and then have the characters kind of compete with each other in the sense that you don't actually need a bad guy for an antagonist. These characters can be antagonists to each other, and they're all good people. They're all your protagonists, your heroes. But because they want different things, they're going to make things hard for each other. So that's a story I want to come back to. That was pretty fun. Now, keeping it dialed in and focused, I think can become a very important, how do you say, it's like an important thing to do, because here's another insight that it's taken me like years to actually understand. And if you're further along in writing novels than I am, good for you, and you probably get this. But it's this sense that a novel isn't real life. And your characters aren't actually real. Whoa, who'd have thought? But we spend so much time, I think, trying to make them real and maybe layered and complex and feel like a real human being, when, here's my take on it, when you step back from a character, you realize that you have intuited a deep sense of who they are. And maybe your side characters are kind of like, they're like flat and they don't have as many characteristics. But your main character, you've intuited who they need to be. And as the harder you try to work on developing them, the less that you can see them. I don't know if you get that. I find that, and it's weird. Like, I have tried with this main character for the novel I'm currently writing. Her name's Freya. With Freya, I have tried to more clearly understand her and her motivations. And so I would put her through character worksheets and development things. I would go through, what do you call it? Like the Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, the archetypes. And I would try to identify, okay, which one of these is her? Because if I can, for some characters, this works brilliantly. if I can understand, like, say, the archetype of who she is as a person, I know the kind of story that needs to be told. Or maybe if I can understand her Myers Briggs, or if I can understand her Enneagram number and which wing she's stronger on, then I can understand what her limitations are as a person. And I kept finding the more I would do that research and then try to craft the story and her to match those findings and that research, the less I could see her, the more I struggled and the more I couldn't understand her. And then it just got to a point where it was becoming very unwieldy. And then I ended up getting a job change and then sort of a 6 month break. And that's kind of where I am now, what I've realized maybe I just need to not try and do all of this charting. Maybe I need to do the thing that I've been perhaps unintentionally avoiding and just go and write all of the opening scenes that set up her as a character that I had in my mind. I thought maybe in the future I'll write, but maybe just need to sit down and just write out those scenes and feel through them what it means to be her. And maybe I'll do it clumsily. But that's kind of the point of what intuition is. Intuition is like a telepathic understanding all at once of something before you get to it from a logical standpoint. And I've intuited who Freya is because the story needs a certain kind of character, and this kind of character needs to go on this kind of adventure. And so the two happen together. So this is a little bit following on from the idea of splitting your Frodos, but it's the sense of recognizing maybe your main character needs to hew to a specific thing. And all of these other things that you want her, the main character, to do, just put those as other characters. And this is something that I find now particularly fascinating and I'm now becoming more intentional about. When I go to create a supporting cast of characters around the main character, they are not just characters with their own motivations and needs and things. And that's, of course, they develop that way. But what actually is really helpful is when you take a step back and you look at the meta level of what a story is. The point of a story is somebody going on a journey of transformation. The whole point of a story is an experience of somebody wanting something and needing the growth and change to accomplish the thing that they want. And maybe they're wrong and they're flawed, and maybe they become a little bit less flawed and they get the thing that they want, and it's the journey that changes them. And the same way with us, you want to buy a house, you want to get anything, you want to achieve a particular goal, you are now in constant engagement and dialogue with yourself. So your shadow, for example, you're in dialogue with that, or you're engaging with that. Well, what is the shadow? Well, from a psychological standpoint, and quite possibly from a spiritual standpoint, the shadow is the part of you that is in darkness, not evil, but the part that you're unaware of. It's everything about you that you are unaware of. And any sort of language that talks about crushing your shadow, repressing the shadow, is the wrong way to think about it. The shadow is everything about you that you're not paying attention of. And because you're not paying attention to it, you have no idea what's lurking in there that needs help, potential strengths that are in there that can help you. So you can start building, well, I've got like my own cast of supporting characters who are like helping me in my life. And I might be like the little Frodo in the middle. And I've got like, imagine the Hulk from Marvel Avengers, and he's kind of shadowy and dark. And he's there, he can come and help to support me. And if I'm not careful, he can overwhelm me. And there are a lot of people where their shadow is just driving them because they are completely unaware about themselves. So that's one kind of character that you can have in there. You'll often see this. Maybe the barbarian is kind of in there. Or you can also have your body as a character, the kind of person that's focused on food, on experiences, sort of the present moment. You have the dreamer side of you, the intellectual side of you. We usually turn those into, I don't know, academic elves or intelligent elves. You've got your inner child. That's your soul, your spiritual side that is needing to be nurtured and developed. And it's probably the part of you that was traumatized at a particular point in your childhood and was sort of locked in at that point. And that's now in conflict with your identity as an adult now. So that could be like a small person or a princess or a prince or somebody who needs to be saved or a small hobbit or I don't know. So you can start to see that you in your own life are surrounded by your own cast of characters that make up you, that make up your own influences. You can call them psychic partitions or psychological, I don't know, sub-personalities or so on. If you're engaging and dialoguing with them, that's kind of what we do all the time without actually being aware of it. And then if you layer on spiritual sides, you can have your, I don't know, your guardian angel, and the world of angels. And then that can be like what's fascinating about the idea of a guardian angel is I struggled with this, like, how do I write a story maybe with an angel in it? Because it's basically all powerful and it's outside the usual laws of physics. But then you recognize, well, the guardian angel has all of these powers, but he does not act in the world. He exists to empty himself and offer his powers to you so that you can learn to act in the world. And so we have this prayer as Catholics, which I fall asleep praying and wake up praying, Angel of God, my guardian dear, someone who's beloved to me, who's here for my best interests. Try to remember the prayer. My guardian dear, to whom God's love commits me here, ever this day be at my side, to light, to guard, to rule, and to guide. Those are pretty powerful concepts. That kind of a relationship to be cultivating with the guardian angel. And if the one thing we know about the world of angels, they're in a space of self-emptying of themselves, whereas we humans are in a space of filling ourselves. So he is giving of his power, giving of his angelic ability to help us evolve, help me grow, help me develop and transform. So that's a pretty powerful cast of characters. And if we conflate them all into one single thing, then I begin to struggle. Like, what is my identity? How do I grow and how do I change and how do I improve? If you split them back out and you realize all of these different parts of me are in conversation all the time. And then maybe if that's still sort of loosely going on in your brain, then you turn to like your character and you realize, oh, maybe I'm putting too much weight on one character. What happens if I split them up into a panoply of characters who are now in conversation? And maybe you'll notice this with like, I don't know, what's a series like this? The Robin Hood series with the BBC, right? Or with a lot of cast characters. The main character is not necessarily the one with all the best decisions or the most intelligent person. They're the person who recognizes the team, can advise them on how to get the mission done, but it's their job to make the call, right? Maybe Ocean's 11, although I don't think I've seen it, the whole thing all the way through. You and me are kind of like that too. We have these incredibly wise, different aspects of us. Jordan Peterson once spoke about this, how as a psychologist, we're made up of parts, which is fascinating. There's like partitions in us, and each one wants a particular thing out of life. And when it takes over, it makes us act in ways that the central you maybe doesn't agree with. Like if your anger takes over and you say things and you do things, and maybe you're half watching yourself and you're kind of regretting going through it. It's like, well, wait, what is going on right here? It's like something else has kind of taken over the controls and you're kind of watching. And then afterwards you apologize and you go, I'm sorry, that wasn't me. And you very well may be right. I'm not saying this is like possession or something. I'm saying that there's a part of you that you haven't mastered, like a different character. And it goes about wanting different things out of life and it gets them in very specific ways. And depending on the type of character, it's going to do that differently. And your kind of job is like, you're a charioteer. There is and you're holding a team of horses. There is a metaphor, and I'll start rapping with this because it looks like the chat is going on, which is fun. But there is a metaphor from where is he from? Eastern Europe. His name is Gurdjieff. And he has this metaphor of a carriage with a driver and a horse. And let me see if I can remember how the metaphor works. And he's like, usually what happens is the carriage is you, I think it's you and your body. The carriage driver is your intellect, and the horse is your emotions. And so the emotions are supposed to pull the carriage, which is you, your lived experience. The emotions, they pull you through things, they get you moving. But the emotions are meant to be mastered by an intellect. But the point is, you are supposed to be in the carriage telling everybody where you want to go. And so you learn how to master the entire experience of being in this thing. But then he says most people are just not in the carriage. Like, I don't know where they are, but they're not in the carriage. And so the horse is going one way or wants to go wherever it wants to go. And the rider is just sitting up there, hunkered in his own, like he's disconnected from his job, which is to be the one guiding the thing, taking you where you want to go. Maybe you're fast asleep in the carriage, or you're on the side of the road and the carriage is somewhere else. So it's just an interesting metaphor to think about how these parts of us are meant to work together. So then it does create the question for us in the same way that it creates the question for our characters. Why are we here? And this goes back to the thing I said earlier. When we create a character, we usually invariably end up creating a character that fits a story, fits a narrative. The character has no idea what that narrative is. They might intuit it, they might start to get at it, but we craft characters to answer the need of a story. And I think this is an aspect of spirituality that sheds light on the human experience, that saves us from the sort of noble nihilism of living a meaningless life and maybe recognizing I can't yet see it. And yes, life is a massive interconnected thing with all sorts of outcomes, but very well maybe I am a character that is meant to live a specific story, and I won't know what that is until I finish living it. And then I will understand. And so, anyhow, I think all of that is just fascinating because I think it all feeds back into how you build your character. So I'm going to check the comments now and see what you all think. So Mary says, I agree. I think the main character is often already there, but we need to write the scenes to find out who they are by their experiences and their journey. Agreed. Good point. Fragwagon says it's fun finding it in the writing itself. It's rather enriching. And then Fragwagon follows up by saying, not sure how it'll end up. I feel my own characters might find fuller flower in the follow-up to this. And I think that's very true. And it's kind of, isn't that why fantasy authors go like, oh, I'm writing a trilogy? Or you start out with one idea and then you really get into it and you realize the actual journey I need to take, or I want to take my character on, has to go through so much because there's such a strong character. I'm going to do this for 9 books because why not? So that's just fun. And of course, that creates another question of like, well, how far, like, does it actually need to be 9 books or 3 books? But anyhow. So Mary says that she writes fiction and creative nonfiction. And in both types of writing, she's discovered so much from writing out your character's journeys, and writing unlocks the shadow sides. Oh, and you did learn about the carriage analogy in the philosophy of the human person class. Well, that's fun. You're the first person I've yet met who's familiar with that. Gurdjieff is a significantly fascinating figure. Just, yeah, curious guy, amazing guy. Okay, I'm going to head off, friends. It's now morning, I think. Yeah, the sun's still not really coming up, but hopefully you're having maybe a nicer day. But then if you're like me, you like rainy days. I don't know about you, but I grew up watching that Beatrix Potter show with the cartoons of, what was it, Peter Rabbit and Jemima Puddle Duck and all of that, done in the style of her drawings. And they always opened with her walking in from the fields on the wet, rainy days. And the little rabbit pushes the paintbrush on her desk and she sits down with a cup of tea and she starts telling a story. And it was always raining. And she enters into this very cozy, warm British cottage. And if you've seen that, let me know in the comments, because the music from that just gets me every time. And so rainy days are always, I mean, they can be, not always, but I like rainy days. Everybody else wants a sunny day. Well, I'll take them all. All right. Have an amazing rest of your day. Thanks for joining Dawn Breakers. If you have questions or thoughts about anything, go ahead and let me know in the comments. It's always fun to share with you and to learn from you. So have an amazing rest of your day. Keep writing, and may the lore be with you.